Hello everyone and welcome to Tareekh. In today's episode, we will be telling you about ruling class or nobility under the Mughals. The Mughal rulers were not new to the art of governance. They had an experience of about 2 centuries of dynastic rule, and with them, they brought a well established system of administration. The need to adapt to the new environment had made them very flexible to absorb the already prevailing traditions in that area. The administrative structure of the Mughals was actually a culmination of Indo-Islamic trends. The rich Central Asian heritage and Turco-Mongol legacy in the form of institutions and practices, they keep emerging occasionally in the Mughal structure. The remnants of Chengizi and Timuri policies and customs, they keep appearing in the Mughal structure in India. The Mughal nobility was an essential part of the Mughal government, not only in terms of politics, but also it played an important role in the changing of socio-economic scenario in the Sultanate.
The Mughal polity was heavily compared to its European counterpart because जब दोनों आप nobility और polity को देखते हैं तो they had very opulent lifestyles, their tastes were very refined, a lot of money went into making these people happy. And there were certain elements that were similar. For instance, land was very important for both the classes, but वहीं से ही काफ़ी differences भी थे. जो यूरोपियन नोबिलिटी थी they were land owners and their military capabilities and their financial status was completely separate from the king. So they were independent entities with their own armies, and the land was also hereditary. So if somebody was owning a piece of land, that would get passed on from generations to generations, and the king could not really interfere with that. In contrast, the Mughal nobility and polity, they were a salaried class, so they depended heavily on the king. They had no land rights. The land was given to them by the king, and the king could take it away. Saath hi saath, the military also that they would keep was for the king, for the Badshah, and all of this was not hereditary. So if somebody got the merit of a salaried post with land, it wasn't necessary that this would continue for generations. In addition to this, the Mughal nobility was very diverse. Not only was it multiracial, it was multi-religious and multi-regional as well. So it did not depend on a pocket of people who were governing or helping the king to govern, but they came from various nationalities, from various regions of the subcontinent as well as outside, different religions. The creation of the noble class depended on the emperor's will. The Mughal nobility had both civil bureaucrats as well as military commanders, and these officers, they were given mansabs, which was like a rank or the office that you hold, and these officers were generally paid either through cash or through the assignment of land revenue, and this was called the jagir. जो न्यूमेरिकल स्ट्रेंथ थी मनसबदार्स की या फिर जो उनकी रैंक कहेंगे, दैट वाज आल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज एक तो बिकॉज ऑफ द सिस्टम द रैंक केप्ट on increasing, and because the rank and the numerical strength of them kept increasing, that also helped drive the economy. Now, one important thing to remember here is that while mostly nobles were given mansabs and they were the holders or they were mansabdars in their own right, but not all those who held these mansabs or mansabdars were also nobles.
Before we see how the evolution of nobility took place under Akbar, let's just see how it was under Babur and Humayun. The ruling class which accompanied Babur to Hindustan was mainly Turanis, who were the Central Asian beyks, and also his kinsmen, and some Iranis. So when he came to India, Afghans and Indian nobles who were a part of Lodi's camp, they were also given position in his bureaucracy, higher positions in Babur's bureaucracy. Many local chieftains also accepted Babur's sovereignty, and they accompanied him in many battles after the Battle of Panipat, and they became his allies. So after the Battle of Panipat, the nobility or the ruling class of Babur was just not Turanis. Now a lot of other elements also joined him. During the early years of Humayun's reign, there was a decline in Indian nobles because a lot of the Afghans deserted Humayun and they joined Bahadur Shah of Gujarat. However, there was a change in the nobility of Humayun between 1540 to 1555 because a lot of the Turani nobility they deserted Humayun and joined his brother Mirza Kamran. Only 26 nobles they accompanied Humayun to Iran, of which 7 were Iranis. And when he was in Iran, many more Iranis joined him, and also joined him when he went to conquer and went to attack Kabul and Kandahar. And this was a period when Humayun took refuge in Iran. When a lot of Iranis joined him and there was an increase in Iranis in his nobility, he promoted Turanis and especially low-ranking Turanis so that he could counter the old nobility and retain his position. When Humayun came to India and won his war against the Sur Empire, 57 nobles had accompanied him, out of which 27 were Turanis and 21 were Iranis. Thus, the Mughal ruling class under Babur and Humayun was not very effective or disciplined because it was still in its formative stage, and because it was not as disciplined because they had to yet see whether they could cope up in a new environment, especially when they came to India.
जब अकबर की बारी आती है तो during the early years of his reign, the situation was more or less the same. The political scene or the scene of the nobilities, they were still being dominated by the Iranis and Turanis, and they were very comfortable in how they were managing things with the power that they had. But जब बैरम खान की डेथ हो जाती है उसके बाद there is a huge change which actually also leads to the rebellion that is orchestrated by the Turanis, and then Akbar realizes that he cannot really rely on people who are like his kin to run his empire because everybody is out for their own gain. So to counter this, Akbar adds 2 new elements into this potpourri of the nobility class. They were the Indian Muslims, who were also called the Sheikhzadas, and the Rajputs.
नॉन-मुस्लिम नोबिलिटी को रिक्रूट करने का जो सिलसिला है वो अकबर ने नहीं शुरू किया था. इट वॉज देयर सिंस द टाइम ऑफ द दिल्ली सल्तनत. स्पेशली मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक, जो कि तुगलक डायनेस्टी के सुल्तान थे, he had recruited Hindu nobles and he had given Hindus a position in his ruling class, in his nobility, on the basis of merit.
He also promoted a lot of Iranis to high-paying or high-ranking posts as a reward for their support during the rebellion. And following this, many Iranis then came to look for employment opportunities in the Mughal court and India in general. 1561 onwards, after the era of Bairam Khan in a way, and when Akbar had started employing the Indian Muslims and also the Rajputs, he had to make a few changes in his policies as well. He employed the Rajputs because of their military strength, because of their valor. And to forge better relations with the Rajputs, he established matrimonial alliances with them. Not only this, he also abolished several taxes. For instance, in 1562, he abolished the pilgrimage tax, and in 1564, he abolished the jizya tax. These taxes were in place already by previous Muslim rulers, and he undid them. Between 1575 and 1580, Akbar also took to appeasing the Indian Muslims to gain their loyalty as well. The Mughal ruling class was truly an international one. Nationality was not an issue. As a result, your noble class had a variety of nationalities. So there were Iranis, there were Turanis, there were Afghans, there were of course Indian Muslims, Rajputs, and even Dakhanis. Additionally, there was another class of people, and they were called the Khanzads. These were the sons of officers or mansabdars who are already serving or have served, and if they were capable enough, they were also employed in the ruling class. It is said that almost half of the nobility of the Mughals was comprised of the Khanzads. Another class of people who rose to prominence during the time of Akbar were the zamindars. Now these zamindars they were officers who held on to an ancestral tract of land, and they would maintain it, and then they would pay obeisance or they would bow to the emperor. But during Akbar's reign, they were also significantly raised by giving them additional mansabs or additional jagirs that just raised their status. In the Mughal administration, there was also people from the merchant community, that of the Kayasts or the Khatris. They were also recruited, but they generally served in the administrative department or in the financial department, fiscal, anything to do with money and accountancy. The only exception to this rule was that of Todarmal, who served under Akbar, and he was given the position of a noble. Additionally, scholars, saints, Sufis, theologians, they were also given positions in the Mughal nobility, especially during Jahangir's reign. One prime example is that of Kutubuddin Khan Koka, who was given a position by Jahangir. He was the grandson of the Sufi saint Sheikh Salim Chishti, and Chishti साहब को अकबर बहुत मानते थे.
According to Aine Akbari, 70% of Mughal nobles under Akbar were of foreign origin, and this continued even under Akbar's successors. Iranis, they played a very prominent role, and they were a very dominant class. During the early period of Jahangir, Mirza Aziz Koka, who was the son of Atka Khan, the famous Atka Khan, who was Akbar's Atalik, and he was murdered by Akbar's foster brother Adam Khan. Aziz Koka claims that the Sheikhzadas and the Iranis were more preferred and favored than the Turanis and the Rajputs. Under Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb too, the Persians, they dominated the nobility. But according to Professor Athar Ali, the influx of foreign nobility and the nobles, it kind of declined under Akbar and this sharpened under Aurangzeb's reign. This was because of the downfall of Uzbeks and the Safavi kingdoms, and Aurangzeb was paying a lot of attention towards Deccan, and he did not pay much attention towards northwest frontier. This was the reason for the decline in the direct recruitments from the foreign lands. But Iranis still maintained a dominant position in the nobility because a lot of Iranis, they came from the Deccan Sultanate. When we talk about Afghans, Akbar distrusted them, but they gained position and trust under Jahangir's reign. Then again during Shah Jahan's period, there was a very famous Afghan noble by the name of Khan Jahan Lodi, who gained a prominent position during Jahangir's period. But in Shah Jahan's period, again he distrusted the Afghans because Khan Jahan Lodi had rebelled. Then again during Aurangzeb's period, we see an increase in Afghan nobility under the Mughals, because a lot of Afghans were coming from the Bijapur Sultanate. The Sayyids of Barha and Kambuj, they were known for maintaining strong contingents, and they were known for their military capabilities, and they had also supported Jahangir during time of his succession. They had a very important position during Akbar's reign and even Jahangir's reign. But during Aurangzeb's period, their prominence declined because they had supported Dara Shikoh during the time of War of Succession. Kashmiris also got a lot of prominence and importance in the nobility, especially in the later years of Aurangzeb's reign.
So Hindu nobles in general and Rajputs in particular gained a lot of favor, power and prestige during the Mughal Empire, starting from Akbar's reign and continuing well beyond Aurangzeb's reign as well. In fact, the position of the Rajput nobles only got better during the reign of Aurangzeb when we compare it to that of Shah Jahan. During the time of Aurangzeb, Mirza Raja Jai Singh I as well as Jaswant Singh, they rose to the position of 7,000 Saath and Sawar, which was a very high ranking office in the Mughal administration. In fact, in 1665, Jai Singh was also appointed as the Viceroy of Deccan. Now, this position was only held by the princes before now, and Jai Singh was given this position. In fact, Jaswant Singh was also made the governor of Gujarat not once but twice. First between 1659 to 61, and then again between 1670 and 72. During the last phase of Aurangzeb's reign, which was approximately around 1679 to 1707, there was a steady increase in the number of Hindu nobles in the Mughal court. In fact, they comprised of roughly 31.6% of the total number of nobles in the administration. There was a huge influx of Maratha officials as well, because following Aurangzeb's Deccan policies, in fact, the number of Maratha officers was more than that of the Rajputs. In fact, the recruitment of the Marathas in the Mughal court started from the time of Jahangir itself, because the Marathas were key players in the politics of Deccan, and to gain more knowledge or to gain more they were basically an asset to the Deccan politics, and that led to them getting really high ranking positions in the Mughal court, starting from Jahangir and just really reaching a high point during the time of Aurangzeb. But Marathas were not the only nobles from Deccan. There were other Deccan or Dakhani nobles as well. Now, these were nobles who prior to this belonged to the kingdoms of Bijapur or Golconda, and they then started serving the Mughal Empire, so they were also included in the Mughal nobility. And Deccan se hi, although the number or the strength of the Deccani nobles was not a lot, there was a huge variety amongst them. There were Iranis also, there were Afghanis also. So the Deccani nobles, although they were not a lot during the initial years of Aurangzeb's reign, their percentage was very low. But towards the end of his reign, and because of his Deccan policies, their number also steadily increased. Now, this created a lot of resentment amongst the already existing nobility, who the older nobility that was already there, the Khanzads, who belonged to families and generations of people who were already serving the Mughal Empire or the Mughal crown. And with this new influx of people, they somehow felt a little threatened.
With huge amount of money at the disposal, the Mughal nobility they lived a life of great pomp and show. They maintained a large establishment of wives, servants, camels and horses. According to Zakhirat-ul-Qawanin, which was a dictionary of nobles which was written in 1642, the Mughal nobility and the nobles, they were great builders. They loved lavish houses and lavish structures. For example, Abdul Rahim Khane Khan, who was famously known as Rahim, and इनके Rahim के दोहे बहुत famous थे. He was a great builder. A large number of sarais, hammams, water tanks, baulis, roads, various gardens were constructed by the nobles. Religious and educational structures was like mosques, madrasas, khankas, tombs. Temples were also constructed by the Mughal nobility. Nobles also maintained their own karkhanas, so especially luxurious products like fabrics, jewelries, gold, ornaments, they were made in these karkhanas. They also imported large number of luxury items from foreign countries. Though Mughal nobility in the beginning was just restricted to the Turanis and Iranis, but slowly it was evolving, and became inclusive, it became international, it became multiracial, where Rajputs also joined in, Sheikzadas, who were the Indian Muslims, joined in, Marathas joined in, other Deccanis joined in, and it became a very multi-religious and multi-racial community. So thus Mughal nobility was just not the two factions, Durrani Iranis, but a heterogeneous structure. I hope that you have liked today's episode. Please like, share and subscribe, and keep watching Tareekh.